Views expressed in the videos are my observation, analysis of events, persons based on principles of astrology. It's not my intent to predict, forecast absolute outcomes, only suggest how they may unfold. Nothing is set in stone. I could be wrong, but often I'm right. My desire is not to promote fear, only inform about what we see unfolding. It is our wish to prepare our subscribers for events that could affect them, their family, their goals, and their future, to help to prepare for what you may already suspect is happening, and to send a warning shot across the bow and raise a flag of concern. Our goal is to help, not hinder, in these perilous times, to inspire and offer possible direction, and to reveal that a greater plan and purpose are behind all that is happening. Eventually, we will see a brighter day. If you would like to show your appreciation for our work on these videos or this channel, and also the Knowing Whispers channel, you can always click on the word thanks at the bottom of all the videos. Hello everybody, it's Robert Cosmar of the Astrology of Life YouTube channel and the 3 Substack newsletters, Knowing Whispers, Messages from the Universe, Trump in America, and also Ask the Astrologer. Today my video is going to be, in a way, a kind of a celebration of Kamala Harris and the difference that it has made that she has been placed in a situation where Joe Biden basically had anointed her to be his replacement. The energy, the hopefulness, the circumstances that people are feeling is so much different than what it has been for almost 6 years. It makes you kind of wonder why they waited so long to begin to knock on the door, so to speak, of Donald Trump's lies and things of that nature in a way that would change the way that we feel about the election as we approach it. So I'm going to be going through a series here of different charts, and I'm going to be explaining to you what I see in the charts that are significant, and try to give you an overall impression of what we're looking at as we move towards the election, and then go beyond that. Okay. And I have one image that I'll be sharing with you that is a graphical representation of the energy around Donald Trump around the election itself. So you can get a sense of, in a head-to-head confrontation, what can we expect? Now, if you have been watching the news in regards to Donald Trump, you know that at this current time, both politically and also in just about every area of his life, he is taking a pretty good beating. He still has not repented of his behavior, obviously, and he is doing his very best to attack Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and the Democratic Party. And this is something that's not going to change, and unless there is some unforeseen experience for him that totally changes his view of himself, we can expect that things will get even more interesting as we move towards the election. The more desperate he becomes, the more fearful he becomes, the more dangerous he becomes. And we will have to see, in fact, I'm going to be doing a video, probably my next video, will be a comparison of his sentencing date in the midst of September, when transiting Uranus is squaring the natal moon in the USA chart. Very possible that these two incidents are connected, and you're seeing the reaction in the chart of the USA and also in the chart of Donald Trump, which is not a real pleasant looking chart. So we'll find out whether in fact in September, whether Judge Merchan decides to do, in some people's minds, the unthinkable and sentence Donald Trump to prison. And that will be an interesting day. Okay, we're taking a look here at Kamala Harris's natal horoscope. She does have a birth time that we can record. October the 20th, 1964, 9:28 p.m., Oakland, California. And the thing that I was looking at here that I think is significant has to do with the aspects to her midheaven, okay, which is in Pisces. All right. Interestingly, with the midheaven Pisces, there are a lot of individuals that are in the medical field. There are a lot of individuals that are in the religious end of things, ministers and things like that. Um, it's kind of a tricky midheaven in the sense that you're not necessarily driven. For example, like Donald Trump has Taurus on his midheaven, so money, wealth are a big deal. With this, it's more or less ideals. It's more or less compassion. It's more or less a feeling of service oriented. Okay, so for an individual who's in politics to have Pisces on the midheaven is a good sign, okay, of their intentions. So the only thing here is that Jupiter does square the midheaven. Okay, that could be in a situation where somebody is too, um, I won't say unrealistic, but their actions and stuff regarding their particular endeavors and stuff maybe are too impulsive, uh, too excitable, too not unrealistic, but it could be in a sense. But this is not what we're seeing with Kamala Harris. And of course, I've mentioned in other videos that I've done with her, she has the closest um, new moon. Okay, I'm sorry, full moon. She has the closest aspect on her birth chart of a full moon. Okay, very few minutes, about 9 minutes difference. And of course, in astrology, the closeness of an aspect says something about the stature of an individual, how prominent they are, how famous or how wealthy or how recognized they are. Okay, and for me, this is why she's been able to go through so many different levels, okay, and to achieve the success that she has achieved. And I think that's just one part of the situation regarding Kamala Harris. And I'll be very honest, it's been very difficult to make sense when I look at her Western chart and her Vedic chart. Um, I had to take a second look at her Vedic chart to really see the strength of that chart. When you take into consideration the aspects that she is going through right now, particularly the Pluto aspect, okay, Pluto is squaring, okay, the moon and the sun, and also Mercury, all right, and yet the things that you would expect to see with that, I don't see happening. I mean, you could say that in a sense it's her being thrust into the position that she's in, might be indicative of that, all right, but I think that there's something more there that's going on that I haven't been able to really kind of nail down to my satisfaction. All right. Maybe it'll happen here during this particular video. Okay. So moving forward to the next image. All right. This is her Vedic horoscope. Okay. And this here, for me, says an awful lot about why she has been able to achieve so much. Rahu, the North Node, is conjunct within like 5 minutes of her ascendant. Okay. And of course, the ascendant in the Vedic chart has a lot to do with your success in life, with how well you project yourself. Do you have any karma that's going to prevent you from being able to rise to a high level in whatever endeavors that you might be in? And again, because of the closeness of this, you're talking about a real powerful example of Rahu. And no doubt, she's extremely ambitious. Okay, Rahu represents insatiable worldly desire. Um, no doubt, along the way, probably on some subconscious level, she has dreamed of being in a position that she's in. And it will remain to be seen whether or not she lives up to this potential. Okay, this is something that I'll show you a little bit later on when I show you another image. Okay, I mentioned before that Saturn the planet that rules Aquarius is in her 9th house. And of course, that's important. It's important when a planet is ruling the house that it's in. Okay. In the 9th house, it becomes even more important because of the fact that it can be a situation where a person has extraordinary good fortune and good luck. Okay. And obviously, this is something which she does possess. And it doesn't hurt that she's in her Rahu Dasa here. That kind of focuses things upon, you know, the desire to achieve, to accomplish, to rise, so to speak. Over here, you're looking at the transits. Okay, Saturn has returned to the place that it was in her natal chart. I think this Saturn return, in a Vedic sense, is significant in the fact that she has risen. All right, it's like another vibration. It's like a strengthening of that Saturn in that house. Okay, you can see here too that Rahu is, and this is November the 5th. This is the election day. Okay, Rahu is in the 10th house. All right. Oddly enough, she has no aspects and she has no planets in the 10th house of her Vedic horoscope. Okay, which to me would kind of seem like that there's not a lot of activity or interest or focus, but obviously that's not the case with her. She's very driven. Okay, again, the Rahu here. Well, Rahu is in the 10th house in her horoscope. Okay, so that is probably very good, a probably very good inclination to what we're going to be seeing on November the 5th. All right, and I really feel comfortable at this point, after looking at so many charts for so long and what's happened with Trump and the circumstances there, even though I feel he's going to be a danger, that we can accept the fact that there's a high likelihood that Kamala Harris will be elected president. All right, that is a speculation that I'm offering to you based upon looking at all these things. But I'll also say that it will not be without problems and without trouble. And I'll get into that a little bit more as I go through here. Okay. All right. Going back here to the chart. And again, these particular charts, I like to mention the astrology program so that you understand what you're looking at. This is the Janus 6.1 program. Okay. This is a program called Joytish Tools Pro. This is a Microsoft Store program. It's a very good, comprehensive, not too overly, burdensome program to get the basic information on Vedic astrology. And then this here is your Kepler program by Cosmic Patterns. Now, as I mentioned earlier, some of the things that could become a problem for Kamala Harris, okay, have to do with the period here beginning in, let's say, probably in September. We may get a whiff of it, and going through October and then into November here. All right. You see here that Saturn comes into play. Saturn is in her 10th house in her Western chart. Okay. It's in her 9th house in her Vedic chart. And what's significant here is that Saturn is going to oppose Pluto, both in September and in January. Saturn is going to oppose her Uranus in October and in December. Okay? Delays, restrictions, okay? Plans unexpectedly thwarted, frustrated. Okay, but probably the most significant to me situation here has to do with Saturn's aspect to the Sun, and of course Saturn semi-squaring here the Moon. But this aspect here between Saturn, sesquiquadrate quadrate, okay, the Sun, this to me speaks volumes about how difficult it's going to be to understand the winning vote for the election. This is a delay. This is for me, is kind of an indication that something's going to create the problem whereby the certification of her as president is going to be delayed. It's going to be thwarted. It's going to be challenged, might be tossed to the Supreme Court in some kind of a deceptive maneuver. All right. So we can expect, and again, keep in mind at this particular time that the transiting Mars and Pluto are opposite one another. So this could come into play as well during this particular time of the election itself. I have no doubt that we will see, to some degree, some kind of violent reaction. Okay, how intense is really hard to say, but when you have Mars opposing Pluto at any time, you're talking about a lot of anger. You're talking about potential violence. Now, on top of all this, we're talking about December here now. Transiting Uranus is going to conjunct her Jupiter. Okay, now you've heard me talk about this many times, that the planets Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, most of the time, in most people's charts, will not show, sometimes in conjunctions, sextiles, and trines. It's almost like they don't exist. When you come to the hard aspects, excuse me, I got the hiccups, between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they will almost always indicate something is going to happen. Okay, this is a very fortunate type of conjunction here, and it's a karmic situation in the sense that some people, it will be activated if it is their fate, their destiny. Other people, it just may come and go, and there's no big deal at all. At least the soft aspects are that way. So here we have some significant restrictions, delays, problems around the election, around her life and the election. Uranus and Venus and Pluto in her natal chart are in her 4th house, which has to do with a person's private life and a person's foundations and things like this. And it makes you wonder if something is discovered that is not known now that could become a big talking point at that point. All right. Just because Donald Trump looks like he is getting really tired, or because he is really old, or because he looks like he is taking a beating at this point, as I've said this for the last 6 years over and over and over again, don't fall asleep on Donald Trump, okay? Because there is something else that's going on here. Again, you can look at a chart of a person and you can say, wow, this person's very fortunate, very lucky, but something comes along that is unexpected. And the only way to understand and explain it is to consider the karmic factors that are in astrology as to why something happened at a particular time. So there is hope, and I'll show you a little bit more of this in another image here. But don't expect the election itself to be clean. They're going to do something. The Democrat, or the MAGA people, the Republicans are going to do everything they can to do an Alamo. Okay, when it comes to this election. Okay, now this is again another program. This comes off of a program called, I'm trying to think of the name of it, Joytish, and I can't remember the last name of it, okay? But it is a very good online Vedic astrology program. What I like about this particular chart you're seeing here is that it shows the aspects from the planets to the planets that are in the houses. All right. And of course, when you're doing a speculation about a particular potential, okay, about what could happen, you want to know what the aspects are going into a particular house that are going to aspect, like for example here, the moon, or here, Saturn, okay, or here, the sun and Mercury. It has a bearing on the significators in the house as to how well they perform, or how positive the experience is in your life, or how difficult and challenging things are going to be in your life. So, as I mentioned earlier here, again, a head scratcher in some ways. This is Ketu or Rahu, okay, and it is conjunct the ascendant here. The thing that's really kind of a head scratcher for me here, maybe somebody will comment on this, she has Mars in Cancer at about almost less than a degree of being conjunct the placement of its fall. Mars is in its fall in Cancer at about 28 degrees, I believe. And this usually devastates a house. This is the house of wealth. It's the house of family. It's the house of teaching. It's the house of speaking. All of those things are a part of what we can see. Now, I believe, I'm not too sure whether she had any children or not, okay? Whether or not this could have some bearing on her family life, or, is her family life in the background, has it been kind of a battleground? I don't believe there's any information about that, but needless to say, it's one of those situations where you wonder whether, or why we don't see more damage in a person's life here, okay? Also, over in the house that is the ruler of politics and stuff, we see the sun is in Libra, okay, which is is the sign of its fall, okay, where it's exalted in Aries. It's also in a fall in the sign of Libra. So again, this, like I said, is kind of the confusion that I feel about what's going on here in her chart. The closeness of Rahu here, is it so powerfully destined, ordained, that it overrides some of these other factors when it's combined with Saturn in the sign that it rules in the ninth house? This is why it's so difficult, why I feel it's so difficult for anybody when it comes to astrology, whether it's the Western system or it is the Vedic system, to be able to say, I predict. Okay, that's why I like to use the word speculation, because I feel that the vast majority of astrologers, okay, are not predicting, they're speculating. They're speculating based upon what they feel or they think could happen, all right? But I think that the reality of it is that no matter how good of an astrologer you are, you still do not have the, quote, godlike power to make accurate predictions all the time. We may get lucky. In fact, I'm thinking in many cases we're either lucky or we have a sense of the overall feel of everything, and we take a chance of speculating on that, and sometimes we win, sometimes we don't. But there is no end to the depth of what can be discovered in a horoscope, okay, about a person's life. And it is so convoluted in some ways that it becomes unnecessary to go to that extreme. Okay? All right, going forward here. Now, this is, I've shown this before on other videos. This is a graphical representation of the next year. And these are the level of strength. Okay? These are the transits and progressions for Kamala Harris in career success over, okay, the next year. And you can see here that coming up to the election, there's a tremendous amount of energy here, activity, okay, positive, excitement. And then around the election time, it drops, okay, going through probably into December. Okay, this could be what I was talking about a little earlier, where you saw Saturn opposing her Pluto and Saturn opposing her Uranus. It's even opposing her Venus, which could indicate that it's having an impact possibly upon her relationship with her husband in some way. Maybe all the, the notoriety, all the prestige and stuff of this, could be in some way, shape, or form having an effect upon him. You know how men's egos are. We don't like to be, quote, looked at as being less than someone else, because of the fact that most of us throughout our life are taught to be very insecure. Now, Uranus conjuncting Jupiter is probably what this is right here. This is a tremendous excitement, tremendous energy, okay, of something happening. All right, and it's very possible this could be because of the issues that come about here, that the election is delayed for maybe several weeks or several months, and then all of a sudden it's a boom, the situation for her is such and she is elected. Now, after that, going into March though, we see that there is brief energy here, okay, in June, another one in February of 2026, but for the most part here, I think that probably the realities of what are happening in the world begin to come into play here, okay? Up until this point, I have been doing most of my readings, obviously, about Donald Trump, because I feel like he's a very um, dangerous individual, and obviously he has proven to be that. And I have a feeling, in a way, that I'll probably be focusing more on Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I have their birth times, and watching what goes on. Okay, watching what goes on. And the reason I say that is because there are more serious problems than the joyfulness that we feel right now about the Democratic ticket. There are other things. There's a situation over in Palestine that's going on. Okay. There are situations with the economy, even though that is good. There are some fears about the economy and, of course, the climate and things of that particular nature. So don't totally let your elation run away with you, because the situation, the story is not over. All right, the story is not over. All right. In fact, I would think that as we move forward in the years ahead, that we will find out that it's very possible that we could see another Donald Trump, okay, come to the, to the surface, because the fear has been somewhat um, anesthetized for right at the moment, but it's not like it's gone. Okay. All right. Looking at another image here. This is a similar image. This is her feelings of good luck and optimism. And you can see that it mirrors pretty much the other chart because they're both tied together. All right. So exuberance right here. And then sobriety begins to kick in, okay, as time moves forward. All right. Now, this is drive, ambition, and work. All right. A lot of activity here. A lot of activity before the election. Okay. And then you can see here a lot of extreme effort in spurts throughout the next year. Okay, very active. Okay, at times very active. Okay, then at other times, it kind of settles down a little bit. Um, we'll just have to see how, when the election is finished and she is in control, exactly what it is that they're going to plan to do. Whether they can live up, whether or not the House becomes Democratic is very key to whether she will accomplish anything. Okay, and if the Senate maintains the Democratic lead also. As it looks right now, unless something trips that up, it's very likely, which would be big. It would be very big for programs and things for the elderly, for everybody in the country, and of course it'll create its own problems as well. Okay, this here is Donald Trump. This is what his transits and progressions look like. You can see here that there is a lot of energy prior to the election. This is November the 1st right here. Okay, and then it seems to dwindle, and there's little spikes here of different things, and then off into November the 2nd of 2025. Again, we don't know exactly what they're going to do. My personal feeling, my hope is that Judge Merchan will take the circumstances with this tremendous outpouring of hope that's coming about and sentence Donald Trump to prison. Okay, it's probably unlikely, but I feel like that when you're talking about, okay, enough is enough, that he needs to consider to take a risk and put Donald Trump in prison. Let him run his program or run his candidacy from behind bars. Okay, see how that works. All right, but to let him wiggle through in September, okay, may be the reason why we see Uranus squaring the moon, because this would be a very aroused emotional state in the country about something that happened that was not expected and was not wanted, or a reaction from the MAGA group because of the fact that he was, put in prison or in some kind of prison. So again, something really big to keep our eyes on as we. Okay, I am back. I had to stop for a moment and do some editing on the video and wanted to make sure I didn't leave you hanging here. So I've come back here to do what I normally do at the end of the videos, which is to thank those of you that are supporters of the channel, both members and subscribers, and those of you that make donations to the channel, whether it be on a monthly basis or also on a as-is basis. It's all very appreciated. This coming Saturday, I will be doing a live stream. It is the second live stream this particular month. And we'll be talking about Trump's situation, also talking about Kamala Harris, I'm sure, at some point in there, and then talking about the process of awakening in terms of how everything is going in that regards. So I hope we had a very nice audience last, I think the first part of this month on the 3rd, maybe it was. We had something like 40 folks that joined us, and I'm hoping that we'll continue that as we go into October. And to kind of recap where we have been going here, I think that we need to be very hopeful, but also maintain a certain level of caution, because we haven't seen everything yet. Okay, we haven't seen everything yet. And with Donald Trump being pinned against the wall, I think the pivotal point is going to be what Judge Merchan does with him. That could be a trigger point, okay, to create some instability maybe, or to finally squash the influence totally of Donald Trump upon America with all his gospel of fear and the sky is falling and things of that nature. Okay, all right. From the love of my life, CJ, my spiritual partner, my best friend, we thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to being of service to you through these videos, through the election, and on into the future. And as I mentioned here a little while ago, I'll be doing a couple of videos. One is going to be on the situation I mentioned here a little bit ago about Judge Merchan and the USA chart. And then I'm also going to speculate about the possibility in the future of, could there be a World War III? Is that possible? And like I said, that'll be in the future. And I think you'll find it interesting, even though I would say that probably it would be a troublesome interest for us all. Okay, thank you again, and I look forward to another video.